What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Wednesday, August 19th, 2026, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 14:46 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the Middle East and from Europe. And right now we have U.S. nuclear forces still on very high alert. What you're looking at here is a live flight tracker showing two U.S. nuclear war command and control planes airborne this afternoon over the continental United States. These planes are responsible for communicating with our submerged nuclear-armed submarines. We also saw about 2 or 3 yesterday and the day before. And on Sunday, we had encrypted data transmitted on the primary U.S. nuclear war frequency for 24 hours straight, which in my experience of covering world events for the last several years, anytime you hear that kind of encrypted data on the primary U.S. nuclear war frequency, it means that something is about to go down. And then this time last week, we had a nuclear war exercise involving all of our nuclear forces. And interestingly, we have a B-52 strategic bomber that just left Barksdale Air Force Base in Shreveport, and it is now heading into Ontario. And interestingly, it turned its flight tracker off when it flew into Canadian airspace. It looks like it's going overseas, so this could be related to upcoming strikes on Iran potentially. We know that Trump canceled all negotiations with Iran yesterday. We also have a nuke sniffer plane up in the air for the third day in a row over the Midwest, which is very, very unusual. And also this afternoon, we have an unprecedented amount of sub-hunters airborne over Florida. Now, Jacksonville Naval Air Station is the sub-hunters' home base, but it's very unusual to see over half a dozen of these up in the air over the southeastern U.S. Unless there's like an incoming hurricane, they'll scramble all the sub-hunters out of Jacksonville and relocate them somewhere inland. But to see 7 of them airborne over Florida is very unusual for there to just be on a standard day when there's no hurricane. And last night there was an unprecedented amount of U.S. and NATO reconnaissance and various types of airborne assets over Poland, and it was confirmed by the Polish military that NATO and the U.S. conducted some kind of air defense operation last night. I don't know if it was an exercise. Not exactly sure what it was. We don't have any details, but we do know that several U.S. and NATO fighter jets and AWACS planes and electronic warfare planes were airborne over Poland near Russia. Okay, so we know that 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it was 3 weeks ago now, or no, 2 weeks ago, a Russian missile flew 60 miles into Poland and destroyed an entire field full of crops. And the Polish government did not shoot it down, but I think this is related to that and potentially Russia potentially invading Poland in the near future, and they're preparing for it. And Iran's armed forces chief of staff warned on Wednesday that countries along the southern shores of the Persian Gulf would be considered participants in U.S. military activity if they assisted or facilitated American forces. So he's talking about Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. And a potential U.S. nuclear attack on Iran could draw the world into a dangerous war, said a member of Iran's parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee on Wednesday, while arguing that Trump would not order such an attack. I do not rule out an ill-considered action by Trump, but I do not think he would have the courage to do so, Fatah Hussein Maleki said. He said Iran would use its available options to respond to any U.S. action and would tailor its response to the type of weapons Washington used. So there's been a lot of talk the last couple days that the Trump administration is actively discussing using tactical nukes on Iran. This was leaked out by Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's basically a disgruntled MAGA person now, and she leaked out details from some of the briefings that she's been in because she was a senator, or is she a senator? I don't know, or congresswoman. I can't remember. It's congresswoman. She said that she basically was in briefings talking about nuking Iran. So this is very serious, guys. And Iran has considered attacking military targets in Europe if U.S. President Trump escalates the war, the Financial Times reported on Wednesday, citing two insiders. Iranian forces had assessed possible strikes against U.S. assets in southeastern Europe, including Bulgaria, which approved the use of Besmer Air Base by U.S. refueling aircraft last month, the sources said. Cyprus, where a British airbase was hit by a drone in March, was also identified as a potential target for retaliation against a renewed U.S. offensive. According to one of the sources, Iran's forces had separately examined attacks on subsea fiber optic cables in the Strait of Hormuz if the conflict intensified, according to the report. One source said Tehran was preparing to expand the war if Trump acted on threats to attack Iranian infrastructure. The other said Iran would place no limits on its response to U.S. military action. Wow. So they're thinking of striking Bulgaria, Cyprus, and undersea cables. Very, very concerning. And NATO is preparing increasingly detailed plans in the event of a potential Russian attack on alliance member states, including the Baltic countries, according to the German news outlet Bild. The concept is to involve stopping Russian forces, weakening their rear, and conducting operations behind the direct front line. So what that sounds like to me is they're going to basically retaliate and strike Russian forces inside of Russia and Belarus, that NATO would essentially directly attack Russia and not just attack the invading forces from Russia. Okay, so they're increasing the details of their plans. Something is about to go down in the Baltics, in Poland. And the drone that was shot down last Friday, August 14th, near the town of Balvi in northeastern Latvia, entered the airspace of Latvia from the direction of Belarus. Okay, so that lends the argument that this was a Russian drone that flew into Latvia. So far, just in the last 2 weeks, we had a Russian missile fly 60 miles into Poland, blow up an entire field just a mile away from a Polish village. We had drones fly into Latvia. We had drones and missiles fly into Romania. One was shot down by the Spanish Air Force in Romania, and then the missile landed in Moldova. So Russia is testing the boundaries. That's what these are all recon by fire attacks. Okay, they're checking to see what the response is from NATO and from these countries. They want to see if they have their air defenses dialed in, if they're operating like a well-oiled machine, or are they chaotic. And so far, NATO has shown that they're actually very chaotic. Yeah, they have really good technology. They have, fancy aircraft and radars and all that. But what does it matter if you can't coordinate all those assets to shoot down just one missile that flew into Poland? Okay, NATO is struggling to shoot down a single missile or a single drone. They make a big deal out of it when they fly into one of the NATO countries. Meanwhile, Ukraine is shooting down dozens of missiles and hundreds of drones every single night. Okay, without even blinking. How is NATO going to handle these types of concentrated drone and missile attacks when they can't even handle shooting down one missile that flies into Poland? Okay. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is Matt Hat Jerky. Guys, if you're a beef jerky lover like myself, you got to try Matt Hat Jerky. This is the best beef jerky I've ever had. I personally met the owner of this company at SHOT Show, and he's actually local to Pennsylvania. This company has an interesting story behind it. He founded this company when he was 11 years old. Yeah, that's right, 11 years old. He's now 19, and he makes gourmet beef jerky, the best jerky I've ever had. He's got over a dozen different flavors, and it's all sourced with U.S. beef, so no foreign beef, no nitrates, and no MSG. So it's all natural American beef jerky. And if you use my promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And you got to go to matthatjerky.com, and I'm going to leave a link in the description down below. That's matthatjerky.com, one word, matthatjerky.com. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off your entire order, and the link and the promo code are in the description down below. And Rafael fighter jets intercepted a plane carrying Russia's FSB senior officials over the Baltic Sea recently. Based on published photographs during their Baltic deployment, the French aircraft intercepted a Tu-214PU with the registration RA64534, a specialized Russian aircraft based on the medium-haul Tupolev Tu-14 passenger airline. So this is basically a Russian doomsday plane, okay? Very little is publicly known about the aircraft. It is known that the Tu-214PU is operated by the Special Flight Squadron, which provides air transport for Russia's military and political leadership, as well as for representatives of the security services. According to assessments, the aircraft is used by FSB leadership as an airborne transport platform, a secure communications node, and reportedly an airborne command center. And what's interesting is if you look at this picture, underneath the tail of this plane, the Russian doomsday plane, there's actually a laser pod, which experts are saying is to shoot down any kind of missiles that may be targeting the plane. So that's pretty interesting. And Ukraine launched its largest drone attack so far of the war against Russia over the past few days, firing over 1,400 drones in a 3-day span, culminating in a massive 620 drone barrage targeting the Moscow region. And the U.S. military awarded Raytheon a $22.9 billion 7-year contract to increase Tomahawk cruise missile production from roughly 60 per year to over 1,000 per year. Wow, guys, that is insane. So they want to build 7,000 Tomahawk missiles, okay, because 1,000 a year times 7, that is insane. And a random explosion rocked a factory in Finland just a few kilometers from the Russian border early Tuesday. The incident ruptured a storage tank, spilling 50 cubic meters of oil into factory grounds and the nearby Lake Sama. Wow, so probably Russian sabotage. And remember, last week there was that ammo factory that produces medium and large caliber ammunition in Italy that was blown up. And we're hearing reports that aides from the Trump and Putin administration held secret talks on Ukraine recently. This was reported by the Financial Times. And Russia has no plans to reach a peace deal this year and may launch a new mobilization after the parliamentary elections in Russia, according to Ukraine's military intelligence. The military intelligence deputy chief Vadim Skibitsky also warned that Russia is preparing to continue attacks on Ukraine's energy and gas infrastructure. And on Sunday, Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin reaffirmed the deepening of ties between North Korea and Russia. And Trump has asked his top envoys, including J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, to cease all engagement with Iran. Wow. And shipping through the Strait of Hormuz slowed on Tuesday as most ship owners avoided the waterway amid unclear signals about reopening. Reuters reported Wednesday, citing preliminary Kepler data. 6 commodity vessels crossed the strait, down from 9 on Monday and below the 10-day moving average of 11. So that is totally insane, guys. Just 6 commodity vessels, okay? That is insane. It used to be hundreds per day. Now we're down to single digits. That is absolutely catastrophic, and it will have an effect on our economy and the global economy. And the U.S. Department of Justice indicted 17 Iranian nationals for conducting a global cyber intrusion campaign. And the U.S. is currently evaluating a potential drawdown of forces in the Gulf states following the war with Iran, and even considering not rebuilding some attacked facilities to their pre-war status, according to Middle East Eye. The war with Iran is being seen by the Department of Defense as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reconsider its regional presence, mainly by withdrawing forces into safer bases in Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel. Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE could all see U.S. forces withdraw due to the proven threat of being in range of Iranian missiles and drones. I don't believe that. I think what Trump is trying to do is kiss Iran's behind by pulling troops away. Remember, that was one of Iran's demands in the initial peace talks. That was one of their major demands, was the U.S. has to withdraw forces from around Iran, in addition to Israel stopping their attacks on Lebanon. Okay, so I think that's what this is about. I think Trump is bending over and taking it in the rear from Iran. Okay, we have lost the Iran war. We did not win the Iran war. Iran humiliated us. They depleted half to 3/4 of our most important missiles, including the Patriot missiles, the THAAD missiles, our precision strike munition, the ATACMS, and Tomahawk missiles as well, okay? And we have nothing to show for it. We depleted half to 3/4 of our critical missile interceptors, nothing to show for it. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Single-digit numbers of ships crossing every day. Snap out of it, guys. The U.S. lost the war, okay? Wake up. Do I need to come to your house with an ice-cold bucket of water and dump it on you? And the UAE suspended all trade, commercial exchanges, and financial transactions with Iran indefinitely as a reprisal for a missile attack on Tuesday. Iran launched 2 missiles at UAE ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Wow, so that is big. And the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, found several tons of nuclear material in Syria left over from the Assad regime. And speaking of Syria, Israel launched massive strikes on western Syria last night, and they also confirmed that they struck the military airport in Idlib earlier this week. And Azerbaijan sued CNN for defamation over a June 5th report that said Israel deployed elite military and intelligence personnel to Azerbaijan for operations against Iran. The lawsuit filed in a U.S. federal court accuses CNN of falsely reporting that Israeli forces used Azerbaijani territory for military and intelligence operations against Iran. Baku is seeking damages and a retraction, according to the court filing. The lawsuit says Azerbaijan contacted CNN before filing the case and demanded a retraction, but the network declined, saying it stood by its reporting. Wow. Okay, so CNN making up crap again, and now they're getting sued, rightfully so. And Japan will conduct tests of hypersonic missiles and other missiles on Australian soil, the two countries' defense ministers said yesterday as they discussed deepened military cooperation and a co-developed laser system. Wow. And the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, has now signed a law legalizing euthanasia in France. Wow, totally insane. And Trump paused the 50% tariffs that were scheduled to be placed on Canada today for the next 3 days because he says that they're working on a deal with Canada. Absolutely insane. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on tonight with another update. And if you like the channel, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a comment. Hit the thumbs up button. Also consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member on YouTube here. That also keeps the channel running. So please help support the channel. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply is doing a major sale on their 4-week emergency food supplies. And to get the deal, you got to use the link preparewithnyprepper.com. The link is in the description down below. But you're going to get 2 4-week emergency food supplies for $416. That's 2 months of emergency food for $400. Where are you going to find a deal like that? This is freeze-dried food, has a 25-year shelf life, packed in 4 rugged, watertight buckets that don't take up a lot of space. So even if you live in a tiny apartment, you can still prep and have 2 months of food for just $400. Use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get the deal, and the link is in the description below this video.